Hi, Hamaima. Welcome back to the Lui Diaz Podcast.
Hi, Louis. So lovely to see you once again.
Thank you. Yeah, look, you must really like this show because this is our third time doing this.
I like it a lot. And as we shared before, you were the first one reaching out to me to be on a podcast. So that was a couple of years ago or so. And it's always so wonderful to connect with you because it flows so easily.
Likewise, I like connecting with you too. You know, I was having a think about catching up with you today and having this conversation. And one of the things that I had to reflect on was like, Hamaima lives a very different life to me. And we're here to talk today about your website, Mission on Earth. And I was reading through it and I was thinking, gosh, my whole existence this year, especially, well, maybe my whole life has been very much based in this like industrial revolution world, where, I get up and I work and I grind and I 9 to 5. And, even though I have, you would say, like a spiritual awareness, I don't really practice much, I sort of go through the motions of. So I was a little bit triggered today, thinking, I'm catching up with Hamaima. She's doing all this great work. And I feel like maybe it's hard for me to relate sometimes. So, yeah, forgive me.
Oh, I never felt that from you. I feel you're very open, and no matter what I share, even if it's really out there, you just totally receive it and you also get it. So I never felt that it's over your head or anything like that. Some of us just have a consciousness like that, and we are really open. And even if you say you don't meditate every day for 2 hours, it doesn't necessarily mean you are not spiritual. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't, just totally open yourself to receiving. And also, I wouldn't reconnect with you all the time if I felt you wouldn't quite be on that wavelength. So I give yourself a bit of credit.
All right, thank you. I will. And yeah, there was something that you touched on there that like I want to come back to, and that is, obviously that you don't have to meditate every day to develop an awareness or to be spiritual or to feel spiritual in some way. And I think one of the things that I really pick up from you since the very first conversation we had, is the words awakening and the words remembering are a big part of your dialogue, are a big part of the way that you share, the work that you're doing here on Earth. And, I think when I reflect on those words like awakening or remembering, I feel like there's potentially for a lot of us a baby steps. There are some initial symptoms, that happen, at the beginning. I guess cool. That's why they're initial symptoms, but that you might not sort of recognize or be able to sort of have an understanding of. So maybe before we go too deep into my questions and my threads, why don't you remind everyone who you are, because we've got some new listeners since I last spoke to you, and then talk to us a little bit about, what you're up to these days.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hamaima. It's hard to say what I am, who I am, and what I do, but I try to describe a little bit. So I am a shamanic practitioner. I consider myself as a New Earth guide. I am a musician. I am here to help this process of awakening that we are all going through. And I use different ways to do that. I hold retreats all over the world. I hold workshops, ceremonies. And like you said already, it's all about remembrance. So helping everyone to remember why they came here, what is their mission, to make them comfortable, to let them know that they are welcome here, that every little step counts, that already being here is enough, that it's already fulfilling your purpose being here. So I hope that I can give a feeling of home and of safety and of arriving and returning, however you want to see it, and to just let everyone know that when there are changes in your life, that you're not on your own, that it's really common now that we are experiencing changes and we are growing and there are shifts happening and maybe also some things that we can't explain. And I am holding space for that. I listen, I share my own experience, and that I do with whatever is necessary in that moment.
Yeah, that's a nice summary. I think you're getting it down, pretty well. And so you talked about being a shamanic practitioner. What does that mean for you day to day? Where are you now in the world? How do you integrate your practices into your life? I'm sure like many of us, or maybe you can answer this, an alarm goes off in the morning, and you might get up and do things, so how do you integrate, the work that you do into your daily life?
Yeah, so my alarm doesn't go off. I usually wake up.
I knew it.
I wake up relatively early, but sometimes also not, because I have the luxury of, if I'm tired and it was maybe a lot of work the last few weeks, then it's also okay to sleep in a bit. And
Yeah, I
I try also not every day. I don't claim that I every day do my yoga and my prayers, but ideally I would get up, and if I can, I go outside and I have my practice that takes around 1.5 hours. That includes some yoga postures, prayers, affirmations, and really acknowledging every part of my body, tuning into where I'm at, how am I feeling, using some mantras, connecting with nature. So just really bringing gratitude to my existence and everything that I'm experiencing. And this is ideally that's happening. Of course, you ask me, what does your life look like? I'm a nomad, and that means I'm often in different places. And it's sometimes hard with the routines when you're always in a different place. So like I'm sleeping on somebody's sofa, or we have something going on and then there was a really late night, or, so then that's not happening. But I always try to, everything is sacred, right? So your food, what you drink, you bring sacredness to it, you bring gratitude to it, you bless it. And I try to find these moments to really connect to spirit and to the energies that are present. And so some days I'm much more connected than others, it's like that. And sometimes through my traveling and maybe my health, for example, I just had a big flu because I've been doing a lot of flying and being in different places. And then my body sometimes stops me. And then that means like rest is required, so it's kind of also trying the best that I can do. And sometimes it's maybe just resting, as well. So, yeah.
So basically, unlike many of us, your alarm doesn't go off in the morning. But like many of us, you're human and you need extra sleep sometimes, and you get sick when you're maybe doing too much.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
And,
it's... yeah, and it is also beautiful. And it's really beautiful when we are with like-minded people, when we are with our tribe, when I'm holding my retreats or doing my ceremonies, and then I feel so connected. And, it's much easier than to be in this high vibration and to be very hopeful and to also bring an energy of acceptance for what may be not aligned right now. And I also totally understand if you have to go off to your 9-to-5 job where you don't really feel it resonates, and it's quite hard to feel connected. We might feel a bit shut down, and we might be in a big skyscraper high above the earth, and it's hard to feel grounded and connected then. I totally understand that.
Yeah, I'm sure it makes sense to you. And of course you would see a lot of different people at different stages of their journey, and of course a lot of them in that initial stage of just figuring out that maybe something feels like it needs to be explored a little more. And of course they're kind of on that cusp of that old life and maybe that new life. So you'd be very well versed in that, I'm sure. But like I mentioned earlier, you wanted to talk specifically about Mission on Earth, the new website, the new project that you're working on. I want to sort of touch on that as early as possible, because I feel like the rest of our conversation might weave in and out of some things that you cover on the website naturally. So let's go with the website and the new project. I was reading through it. It's very exciting. Why don't you explain it to us?
Yeah. Thank you for giving me that space to do so. So it's called, as you said already, Mission on Earth. And it has kind of been in my consciousness for a few years to create something like that, but it never came through properly. And then only through a dear friend who asked me, are you working with teenagers as well? Do you offer support to teenagers? I was like, I don't at the moment. I used to work as a social worker with teenagers, and I always wished that I could work with them again, but with a totally different consciousness in a different way. And then she kind of sparked that in me again. And I was like, okay, let's see, how can we do this? And at the similar time, I met with a dear friend in Guatemala, and he said to me, I had this instantaneous awakening at the age of 50. And it took me like 2 years to kind of make sense of it, to ground it all in. And now I want to offer coaching for those who are experiencing similar things. And I'm like, wow, I always had this idea to work with children and to offer coaching there. But now that you're talking to me, I feel we're all children of this universe, and we're all affected by this awakening process that we are in right now. So why should I just specifically work with children? I felt like, let's open it up for all age groups. And he kind of was the one that I needed to meet to inspire me. I went back to my home there and I wrote it all down, the entire idea of this Mission on Earth project, and also invited most of the guides already. And that was it. And and what it's really support network for everyone who's affected by the beautiful energies that are flooding our planet. So I feel that already for some decades, the amount of light that is flooding the planet is like off the charts, And what that means that we are collectively in a process of awakening, transformation, of shifting into a higher dimension. So collectively as a species, but also individually. And at the same time, Mother Earth is shifting into a higher dimension. So we're all in it together. What that means is when there's a lot of light which is coming in, all the dark, the shadow is coming up. So that's why at the moment, some people would say it's never been worse on this planet. We have so much turmoil. We have wars. We have all killings and rapes and all this stuff and crimes and it's never been worse. And how can you talk about the new earth? And we are already there when it looks like this, that's what I always get. And it's actually what we are in is a purge, it's like a massive purging of this heavier, denser energies. And that's why they're coming. They're all illuminated by the light and they're showing themselves. So, and that is why we're seeing on the planet so much going on, but also within ourselves. So all the skeletons in our closets, all the demons that they're somewhere in the basement, we all have them. And maybe before we're always very good at ignoring them and kind of like, no, we don't want to look at it. But now they're just showing themselves because it's just the energies are as such and we have to deal with them. And dealing with them means, can you also bring love and compassion to that demon of yours? Or better, there is this part of you that has experienced abuse as a child. And this part of you is still holding on to that trauma and that fear and that pain within you. So now maybe decades you haven't looked at this part and it's like feels totally unloved. It carries heavy burdens for you, but you don't want to look at it. So now it's the time to really honestly search within ourselves and see, okay, what is the light bringing up? Or there's this part of me that is still holding on to this really difficult, strong experience. Let's see if I can bring love, compassion, and care towards that part of me, So this is a way how I like to coach people. It's like, okay, it's all coming up. We're experiencing a big turmoil. Maybe we are experiencing physical symptoms that you go into all the doctors and nobody knows what is going on. Or suddenly you're experiencing depression or manic episodes. Or it can also be that people hear voices and they're suddenly like, oh no, I'm going crazy. What is going on? So it's like a whole kind of upgrade of everyone, but it will bring out a lot of interesting symptoms. And that's where we come in. It's like, okay, so what is going on for you? All of this stuff is going on. I've been to psychologists. I've been to doctors. No idea. Nobody can help. Maybe they put you on medication, but it's not really the way. It can be helpful temporarily. So we come in and we will listen. So what's going on? Okay, so we have some experience with that. Maybe personally, we have a network of 20 guides that come from all walks of life and share different modalities. And we can say, so in your case, it would be really great if you go and speak to Patrick, for example. He can show you how to work with your energy and how to ground your energy, maybe work with crystals and so on. Or you go off to Johanna and she will help you to establish a daily practice, half an hour breathing, yoga, meditation to help you ground in all that is coming in right now, So it's really meant to be a network also to give you reassurance and calm and to just say, maybe everyone around you misunderstands and they think there's something wrong with you. You're going mad, but like, just let us hold you here for a moment and reassure you it's all okay. It's just a big transitioning, that is bringing up a lot of stuff. So that's generally for anyone who would come with this kind of experience, we are there. But also we work with from already preconception. We have somebody who works with the womb and womb healing and womb activation, calling in spirit babies, bringing them in. We have guides that work with children from birth to 6 years old. For example, my mom is an energy healer, and she would, if there's a baby that's maybe born too early, she can connect to this soul and just really make sure they feel safe here. She can clear their lungs, just through distant healing. So just making it more safe and more welcoming for them to arrive on this planet. And then all the way through to children, teenagers, all age groups, also the ones that, like I said before, had an instantaneous awakening, at a later age. That is more and more common these days as well. So we have guides who have experienced that themselves and can really be there. And it's just like holding space for it, really, and bringing in kind of the idea of a network of all of us together. We have wisdom keepers who are at the moment on the outside, really holding space energetically from all different traditions that I have worked with personally. Yeah, so it's a big network, and we also want it to be a portal for information. So, for example, somebody comes, I really struggle with my child, and they don't get on in school. They have been diagnosed with ADHD, for example, and I'm not sure how to support them. And then there will be a lot of material to teach you about maybe your child is a starseed, how to support your child, what are the characteristics, how can you recognize, and so on. And we just also got involved a beautiful organization that's called Happy Little Yogi. They offer yoga classes for children, for example, and for all these children who are super sensitive and maybe seem a little bit different. They are different, but they are beautiful, of high vibration, and they need just a little bit a different support. So there was a lot already. So I stop here now for a moment.
No, of course, yeah. It was a lot to take in, but I think if I was to play it back to you, it is something that you've been thinking about for a long time. You reconnected with some friends or former associates and people that you know from your past and your industry, and the idea sort of came from them as well, and it sort of resonated. So it's kind of culminated for you, like it really felt like the right time to push forward with this idea and bring it together. And what you've actually brought together is a network of people that, are experienced in different ways to support people through these awakening or remembering journeys, because you yourself might not have all of the skills and experience. You might specialize in one particular area where others might be more experienced in other areas. So this network is to really create a good, strong bond of knowledge. And then, as you mentioned, you also have the portal side of it where, you want to be a place where people can come and discuss some of the challenges that they're having and have access to all of the collective wisdom that you and your, associates as part of the project, offer. So was I able to capture that? Okay.
Beautiful. Yeah. Just maybe just a little bit to the process. So if you find us on missiononearth.org, there will be, you can either book a guide directly if you already know what you're looking for. I'm looking for a medium. I'm looking for somebody who does tarot or energy healing or yoga, whatever it might be. But it could also be, I'm struggling here, but I have no idea who to turn to. And maybe also those who are very new on the spiritual path, haven't heard of most of the modalities. So we have questionnaire that you can fill in. And the first question is, are you in a crisis? Because some of us right now are in a crisis. We don't really know how to navigate this reality anymore. And that is also okay. So we are open for that. And so once we receive the questionnaire, we have a first response team, which has 2 psychotherapists and a coach and a mental health coach as well. And they will reach out to you within 24 hours and see what's going on, where are you at exactly? And then they will signpost to a guide or create a program. So this is kind of the process when you reach the website, which I feel like it's beautiful because this really for everyone, we want to offer support for everyone who comes seeking that. And the ones that are seeking supports, we're calling the seeds. And we want to offer a fertile soil so everybody can grow into this beautiful plant and then in a big tree, and shine their own light. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So there's a bit of a structured process at the beginning for people as well. There's a questionnaire that helps you to understand what kind of help they're looking for, helps maybe them understand and be able to articulate what they're looking for as well. So,
exactly.
And then off they go on their journey, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah. And we feel also they are all part of the network. It's not like, there's a clients and, we know more. It's just like, no, we are sharing. We probably had experiences like you had, and then we're just sharing our experience with you. And we want to create this big network. And at the moment, it's an online project, but with a view to have Mission on Earth retreats, Mission on Earth gatherings, where all the wisdom keepers would also be present. That's my dream, at least, so that the wisdom keepers at the moment are my friends from Guatemala, Lava Love Cacao, Isaias and Isabel. And then we have my friend from Ireland, Rob McCoffey, who is a wonderful psychotherapist and does men's work and is like holding the Celtic lineage. And my teacher from Brazil, Hushahu, and her husband are involved, and also a beautiful friend. You might know her, Gemita Inkari, Anchoring the Light. She is getting involved. She's also from Australia, like you. So I'm very excited and I always had this dream years ago to bring all of these people who inspired me, all of my teachers and friends together. And if I could make that happen, or we could make that happen one day, to have the wisdom keepers, the guides, the seeds that have grown into a big tree by then, and also everyone who somehow wants to get involved. We are just creating a Telegram channel for everyone who wants to be involved in some way and contribute. So that is the vision for maybe in 2-3 years or so, to have these big gatherings in those vortexes around the planet, like Sedona, Guatemala, Glastonbury. So that's what I would love to see it grow into that.
Yeah, well, you've taken the first steps, which is really great. And I think it's a great place for you to start, bring people together online and build the community first. So yeah, well done on finally getting here in your chapter to making this happen.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for giving me the platform for sharing about it as well, because I feel very much it's interesting when promoting oneself can be really hard, when I come to my retreat, I offer this and that. But with this project, I feel this is really my mission and our mission, and I'm very happy to go everywhere and talk about it, because it doesn't feel like I'm blowing my own horn here. It really is with the intention to help and support. This is the main intention. It's not about getting the guides more work or helping them to be more seen. Of course, also beautiful if that happens, but it's like, okay, no, people are struggling. We have some experience. We can help. So let's do it. This is really what it's about. Yeah.
It's a great mission. And like I said, well done on getting here. And it's my pleasure to, help give you a platform to share it. I mean, you're really great at sharing your story and your mission and your experience. And, I remember the first episode that we did together was really popular and still being listened to today. And so was the second episode that we did. And so obviously, you have a great network of people that really are intrigued by what you do at the very least. And, there's people that are watching, there's people that are watching and they're listening and they're resonating with you in some way, and maybe it's the glow, like I think I told you once that you have this kind of glow, you kind of radiate a little bit, you have this radiant smile that you always greet me with. I'm not sure if it's just me or if you do that with everyone. But I guess I appreciate that. I don't believe you, by the way. And I think there's probably an element of envy that people might carry when they look at you. I'm sure that they're struck by that. What's she doing in her life that so makes her glow like this and smile like this? I want some of that. But I want to change the tone a little bit. Because you talk a lot about Earth. and we're these beings here on Earth. And so, for those of us with, an industrial revolution grade education, which is most of us, we go to school when we learn how to do basic maths and write and alphabet stuff. And that's what we kind of get taught until, varying degrees of complexity right up until we're about 18. And we might be introduced to the planets and the solar system in that education system. And we get taught about that as in this kind of, it just exists out there. And so when you talk about Earth or when you talk about the planet, what is it that you mean? And how do you look at our planet? Because some people might look at it in a very scientific, matter-of-fact kind of way. Yeah, we revolve around the sun, 300 days takes to go around a full circle, and yada, yada. We have a moon, controls the tide, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I see the Earth as an experiment, and I feel that the Galactic Federation has created this beautiful place with the intention to make it the most abundant and the most beautiful and gorgeous place. And as I understand it from listening to channeled beings and so on, is that this experiment has been started many times and something always went a bit wrong, so they stopped it. And this time, again, they felt something went a bit wrong because they say that a comet hit the Earth and everything was brought out of balance a little bit. And so some energies came in that you could consider as denser energies or not what they were intending for this planet. So they were discussing, so shall we stop this? And then they decided, no, this time let's just carry on. We give everyone free will on this planet. Like we have free will, right? We can make our own decisions. And we will intervene only when they threaten to destroy this planet. So we did, right? We threatened to destroy the planet, possibly still are, but the Second World War, 2 atomic bombs were dropped. And they are doing it, so we need to intervene. So they sent volunteer souls. I might have talked about it last time, have I?
Well, you'll have to refresh my memory because, I get into a trance when I listen to you. I don't really recall sometimes.
So even if I have, maybe it's good for the listeners to hear it again as well. So they sent the first wave, it's called, of volunteers. So they're high vibrational souls that come, they all have in common that they don't have much experience on Earth. They might have had lifetimes on other planets, in other galaxies, and so on, but they didn't have many lifetimes on Earth. Hence, they're high vibration, so haven't been weighed down by lifetimes and lifetimes on this planet. So they volunteered to help this experiment. But like everyone who arrives here, at arrival, they forget their mission. That's also how the universe works. So you can be the most enlightened soul, and then you arrive in the human body, then it takes some moment to remember, maybe decades, right? So they arrive and they are meant to really raise the vibration and help this planet. But they forgot their mission, so they were actually struggling because their high vibration met this very dense vibration of this planet, and they kind of didn't quite fulfill their mission. But they were still paving the way. So for the second wave to arrive, which I consider myself a second wave volunteer born in the 70s. So we came and we are meant to be beacons of light. All we have to do is be here and be as amongst as many people as we can, because with our vibration, we will make a difference, a big difference. That's why I often say to people, don't worry about your purpose. You are already here. You're here. You're doing it, because there's so much pressure around what's my purpose? What am I meant to be doing? Just be here is enough. Be here and feel home here. Be relaxed and grounded in your body. It's also sometimes hard, But yeah, so second wave and then the third wave arrived quite quickly after in the 80s with the first indigo children. So there's all these souls that are volunteering to come here to help Earth as a planet, but also Earth, you were asking, she is a multidimensional being herself. And she is shifting into a higher dimension right now. And this is what we experience all together. This is why the volunteers come. We are shifting together with the planet. And there's also said that it never happened before in the history of this universe or all universes. I don't know, who can say? But so together with this multidimensional being, we as individuals and humanity as a collective and all beings, we are shifting, or better, we are invited to shift. Some of us really chose this lifetime. I'm going to study density. I'm going to study polarity. I'm going to go deeply into the depths of the ickiness and muck of what can be experienced. Totally fine. You know, it's not like they are bad or that's wrong or you should choose these energies. No, because then we're putting ourselves into like, we know better. Not at all. It's like there is this shift happening and you are invited. Everyone is invited to join. And that's why everyone also feels what is going on. So I don't feel settled anymore. What is going on? But a lot of people might still choose. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not choosing these higher energies. I'm remaining in the matrix, as they say. Or maybe it's on the human level, it's often a very unconscious decision. You know, like you said, you're in the daily grind. This is what you learned. You know, you build a house, you go to your job, you have children, and then that's also totally okay. It's totally fine. But sometimes and often mid-40s or maybe a bit earlier, people are thinking, what am I doing? What now? Like, what have I been doing? Like, I have the career, I have the kids, I have the house, and now, you know? So that's when there's a big crisis and you wonder, things have to change. And often this big crisis comes with health problems, right? I'm sure you know it in your circle of friends. Like at some point we can get away with the drinking and the drugs and the bad eating until we're 35. And then suddenly it all comes hitting home. No, like I feel that's what I can observe. And this is also helping to awaken. You can choose then, okay, I'm going to go into the medication and all of that, and I'm continuing with this life where I'm numbing myself, or I'm taking this as an amazing portal for massive change, and I can change my whole life and live a more meaningful life, meaning for yourself, not for everyone else, you know. So Earth is a school. We learn here, we grow here, we shift, we can create, we can feel, we can sense. We are in a human body, and we can experience a 3D reality, which is exciting, you know, like we are spiritual beings, like we are spiritual beings living a human experience. And that is, once we can see it as it, then we can even appreciate the sickness and the pain and the heartbreak. And because it's all like the massive experience that we can, without a body, probably not experience, you know, so... Again, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, gosh, that if you just tuned in for the first time and if you're, haven't been exposed to these kind of conversations much before, you'd be sitting there thinking, what the heck is she talking about? My God, like, hello. But there's some things that you've talked about that, resonate with me for various reasons. I think early on, when we first started talking, you were talking a little bit about how shedding light on things, removes the darkness, but the darkness doesn't just disappear, it has to disperse, which was a really interesting point that you made, obviously the darkness has to go somewhere, it doesn't just disappear magically because there's light all of a sudden. So yeah, I understand that. You also...
Yeah, 1 second. But darkness is not about having the darkness disappear, because the darkness is as valuable as the light is, So sometimes we forget and we are afraid of the darkness, but really like the darkness is the birthing place of the greatest light as well. And that is important to remember, how the night and the day, we need the darkness and the light in equal balance, right? And these dark parts of ourselves, the shadowy part of ourselves, or the parts that hold maybe traumatic energy, I don't believe it's about, we have to get rid of it. It's about embracing. It's like to really embracing, holding that part that holds this energy, to let it transform. So it's almost like alchemy, right? It's like, okay, you are holding this trauma for me, and have done for many years. So let me hold you now. What do you need from me? Like if you talk to like an inner child, for example, then I feel it's really about transmuting, transforming, and appreciating also the darkness, because in these moments, they are teaching us the most. When you look at difficult times in your life, it's like, I really learned there how to be wise and compassionate, how to have empathy. I learned so much about myself in this sickness, like a lot of people who had cancer, for example, or an illness. And of course, will be a very difficult, dark time for them. Coming out of it, they often say, actually, was probably the best thing that happened to me, because I changed everything in my life. So my life is so much more enriched and much more vibrant. You know what I mean? So it's important to appreciate and recognize the darkness for what it is, in a beautiful birthing place, a beautiful teacher, and a place where we can also hibernate and rest as well, for example, so
yeah. No, I'm glad you added extra context there, because I think it's important to set the record straight on what we mean by darkness. I think and what you mean especially. And I think it was nicely put that it's a great teacher. You're right, because upon my own reflections, I can confidently say that at some of the most brutally challenging and might call them darkest times in my life, something good has come from them, something that I hold as an important lesson, and whether it's about self-discovery or discovery of others or the world that I live in. So I really resonate with that. But to put it in that context of what the globe is going through, what the world is going through at the moment, really puts me a little bit more at ease, because you're right, you were talking about the turbulence and all of this dramatic events that are happening today that people might be freaking out about, and you mentioned before that people come to you with questions about it. They say, like, if this is really the amazing evolution that we're experiencing as you see it, then why are things so crap at the moment, But, as you put it, this is a great opportunity for us to develop some learnings that'll take us into the next phase of our collective journeys together.
Yeah, and it's a cleansing process, and it needs to be looked at, because those energies have been hanging around. They were never gone. So now it's just they're much more present in our face. So we have to look at them, and there are certain, like, I would highly recommend not to, of course, people say we have to be informed and I need to know what's going on in the world. Often people say that, and if that's what they feel is okay. But I also know that a lot of people are maybe far too much on watching the news, watching social media, watching, everything that's going on, and it causes fear, it causes your energy to drop, because you're in a constant state of stress and fear, and it's like, oh, will it affect us? So everything is, are we safe here? Everything is getting so expensive. Will I be able to support my family? And if you are constantly consuming these news, then you're constantly in a place of fear and stress. And that really is not recommended. So if there are listeners who I would really highly recommend reduce watching the news, etc. For example, I have maybe 15 years I haven't watched any news or read a newspaper.
Yeah, right.
So,
wow.
And I'm sure there's also a lot of your listeners maybe that say, oh God, she has no idea what's going on, and that's why she's talking like this. Probably, probably if they feel that way, it's okay. But for me, my mission here is to spread the message of pure divine love in an innocent, childlike manner. So if I put myself full of all these kind of that is being reported, and I wouldn't be able to vibrate in this frequency, and you wouldn't tell me how much I radiate and how beautiful my smile is, because I would sit here like, oh my God, it's all is terrible, right? So I feel, because of my mission, I want to keep this energy as clear as possible and help others to do the same. So what you are feeding, meaning what you pay attention to, this will be most present in your life. So if you pay a lot of attention to the war, then this will be always present. You will constantly have this energy of war in your field, right? So the wolf you feed, right? That is the one that becomes the strongest. So see what you put your intention and what you focus your attention on. What people make you feel happy? Where do you feel empowered? Where you feel energized? What brings you real joy and what are you passionate about? Do more of that. And really, when do you feel relaxed? Going out for a walk. Why do you not do it every day? Oh, I don't know. I am busy doing other things. It's no, this should be priority. Go out for a walk, connect to nature. She has all the answers. You will feel so much better. So maybe even keep a little journal. So that day I just watched a whole lot of news and drank a whole lot of coffee, felt terrible at night. Next day I went for a hike with my friends and I slept really well and I was really at peace. So just take a little bit, you are accountable for yourself. Everyone has responsibility for themselves. So do the things that make you feel good and focus your attention to what you want to see to grow.
If you haven't already, find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok, where you can catch additional content and grace us with your thoughts. Thanks again and enjoy the rest of the episode. Yeah, that's a really great message, that everyone is accountable for themselves. And I think it resonates with a lot of the other messages from the different stories that are told on the podcast. I love to talk about accountability for yourself, and how that adds value to your overall community as well. But going back to some of the things that I was reflecting on, I sort of started wondering, have you ever read or came across the book, The Messages in Water Crystals or something like that by Masaru Emoto?
Yep.
Yeah, that one? Yeah, it's a great book. And I think because you drop the word gratitude a lot,
Yeah.
And I think part of one of my special interests in life is in lots of learning. I like learning. I like having lots of different conversations with lots of different types of people on very different wavelengths and tangents. And of course, I live a life of a colorful life, I suppose, at times as well. And I go about my own things, and I have my own habits and things that that I have to be concerned with. But one of my passions is reading, and then I love connecting the dots and making correlations between something that I heard over there and something that I heard over there, and going, oh, did you realize that person was talking about that thing in a totally different context, but they said the same thing that you said. You just said them in very different ways, and you're almost maybe talking about the same thing. And the thing about that book, I think it's called The Messages in Water Crystals or something like that. Yeah, Masaru Emoto. For anyone listening, just look up. It's a Japanese author, very famous book, and he talks about the planet, actually, like you do. And I'm not sure if you recall that part of the book. At the very end, he becomes very, I would say, philosophical about how he feels the earth is like the liver for the universe, and that water comes here. Water is just brought here in big chunks, and it's the earth's job to cleanse that water, or to be the filter for that water to spread through the rest of the universe.
Wow. I am not aware of the book. I know his work, but that's really interesting. What you just said.
Yeah, it is.
Beautiful.
It is. And so when you talk,
and
No, I was just saying, when you talk about the earth, it's come up because I listened to the audiobook. It's a very short audiobook. I listened to it on Audible. It goes for about 2.5 hours. So I've listened to it twice on bike rides to work, And that's a part that really threw me, because it is slightly off tangent to the rest of the book. The rest of the book, where it really hones in on water crystals and how saying words like love and gratitude actually changes the water. Now, if that's true, and well, it's scientifically proven by Mr. Emoto, so it must be. We're 70% water, and coincidentally, so is the Earth. Apparently, 70%
exactly.
water.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
exactly, yeah.
I start to make these correlations, between us and the Earth, and then you talk about gratitude as being a vital part of your existence. A vital part of what enables you to keep your frequency high. And then if I look at books like, The Secret, or work from Joe Dispenza about the laws of attraction and the quantum fields, it all starts with gratitude. So while someone might be sitting here listening to you, and like I said before, they've just chimed in. They've never heard anyone like you talk before. The first thing they're thinking is, oh my God, what is she talking about? Everything that you've said can be correlated to something else that's over here and over here, and some teachings, so from brilliant teachings from brilliant people on this planet that are talking about very wonderful things. You're just talking about them in a slightly different context. But when I listen to you speak, I do hear a lot that I can reflect upon, that this is not the first time or the first way I've heard this message. And if I listen with my heart, I've actually heard it over there and over there and over there too, from people that I love and respect and admire. So for our listeners that are maybe tuning in, I think maybe take a moment to reflect on where you've heard these kind of messages before.
And it's how I make sense of it. Like, this is how I'm making sense of my existence here. And it doesn't mean it's the truth for everyone. It's just my own truth, right? Yeah. And this is just what really resonates with me, and what helped me a lot to understand my energy and how I can impact others and what I can do to help people in this situation right now. So yeah, you can forget about all the galactic things maybe that I mentioned and so on. But what is really, like you said, for example, gratitude, presence, being grounded, connecting to nature, how you're interacting with your loved ones or with people you just meet. This is the key. I can talk about all this galactic stuff, but really when it comes down to it, is how are you living your life? How are you starting your day? How are you treating others? How are you treating animals? What message do you put out there? How is your frequency? How is it affecting others? So this is what counts. So really, like you said, thank you for saying that. It's really just, we can change the world, of course, but it starts at home. So many of us are looking on the outside. So there is a crisis. We need to support that. We need to do this. Blah, blah, blah. But really, it starts at home. So what one of my teachers actually says, and that's connected to the water, once you sort out your inner world, your inner being, and you bring everything into harmony, because what is on the outside is a reflection of what's going on the inside. So once you have sorted that out in you, there won't be any rubbish in the oceans anymore, because the rubbish in the oceans is just reflecting the rubbish in you that you haven't looked at. That's how he said it. And I felt like, wow, that might also be a little bit too much for some people, but it really starts at home. Don't worry about what the neighbors are up to. Don't worry about the conflict over there. It's like, are you in harmony with yourself? Are you in harmony with your relations? Are you looking after the environment as much as you can? Of course, there are big industries that are polluting the planet, and you feel, if I recycle now or not, doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It does. Because it matters for yourself, right? And if we all do it, then everything will change. So from the very kind of cosmic perspective, bringing it to you as a human or a being in a human spacesuit at this time, we as an individual, what can I do? What can you do to make this a more loving, harmonious world for our children to grow up in? That's really what it is, right? And everyone, again, has responsibility here. It's like pointing the finger is easy. You're doing this wrong and they're doing, and look at what they're doing. But pointing the finger towards you and like, what is going on there? This probably some people don't. And it's very hard. It's very hard to take responsibility for your experience. When I do my prayer in the morning, I say that I take responsibility for everything that is in my field, everything. If the war is in my field, then I am partly responsible for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If somebody has a big argument, and if somebody has a big argument in my friend group and I know of it, it's in my field, I also have responsibility for it, And I think it's a very powerful way of looking at things.
It is.
And yeah, exactly. So it's not, pointing the finger has never helped anything, I feel.
Yeah.
Because we're pointing away from our own responsibility.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
what I feel.
No, I resonate with that. And if I sort of bring it back to a very common world example, I was actually sitting at work today and I was thinking about, I work for someone And fortunately, I developed this kind of method in my life where I would openly admit now where I've made a mistake. Not all the time, but sometimes. Many times I will do that. I will openly admit it. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know why. I think I work for this person, and he's about 10 years older than me. And I reflected on a part that we played. You know, someone's been recently let go from their job, and we could have supported this person more. And the first thing I did was call out, you know, that, listen, I don't know if we would be in this position or this person would be in this position if we had done more, if we had supported and held up our end of the bargain in this person's career. I feel like we could have done better. I feel like we let them down. You know, so I resonate with, you know, you in a way. The thing that I felt was that maybe at times I feel like my boss isn't always as willing to say the words, yeah, we messed up. Mind you, I've got to give him some credit because he did use those words today. But I think there's a fear that once you start to open that can of worms, hey, listen, I messed up here, I'm going to take responsibility for this, that you might be saying that a lot for a lot of reasons. You know, and part of the fear, especially in like the corporate world, if you think of the corporate world, if you think the 80s and the power suits and this personas of being really driven by success and facade and smoke and mirrors and masks, you know, admitting that you made a mistake is not welcome in that kind of paradigm. It's not. It's really like you're throwing yourself under a bus and you're committing what they call, you know, in the movies, career suicide, you know. So, and so, you know, I understand that there's people that might listen to you and what you've just said just then and go, whoa, you mean like you're going to take responsibility for like a friendship group having an argument in front of you and like the war? Like how can you possibly put that burden on yourself? One might be wondering, you know, is that too much of a, or is there some magical way in which you don't treat it like a burden? That's probably the next question.
So first of all, I feel also with businesses, we are shifting into a new paradigm. You already mentioned the word as well, where we will have more conscious businesses where there are no hierarchies, right? Where we all work together, we all have some ownership. And then in these places, we will have authentic, and there are already places like that, authentic communication, where it's very openly and honestly, I'm really sorry. That is my mistake. You know, I take full responsibility. And so more you do that, it's such a better way of working, you know, and really respecting each other. And then it's okay because that if once it's said, I'm really sorry, that was my mistake, it's okay. But if you are pretending it's not, or just like shifting responsibilities, and it's like it's not a very nice climate to work in, you know, at the moment, maybe one feels one has to do it because it's how it works, but everything will change. And it will change with us already making these steps in those businesses that are very much old paradigm businesses. But so more we all do this, it will change from within as well. You know what I mean? We can't wait for it all to have changed. No, we are the change, so we have to make the changes. And also maybe with the risk that we might be jeopardizing our career or so on, but do we want to be in a job where we are not seen, where we can't speak our truth, where we don't respect and support each other? Do we want to be in a job like that? You know, that's the question. And then it comes to like full trust. These days it comes to when we fully trust, everything will be provided. I also struggle with that sometimes. It's like, oh God, we have to do this and that. It's like, no, fully trust. If you are like letting go of it all, all the programming, and you are following much more your heart, then it will all fall into place and it will be okay. And you will be looked after, you know, but because we're all so programmed by fear and by old conditioning that it's hard sometimes to see even another way. You know, and now maybe some of your listeners will think, oh God, again, you know, totally detached from reality. But maybe in 5 years' time, they think back and they're like, oh God, this crazy woman on the podcast, she talked about these things, and you know what I mean? So just maybe sowing some seeds or just letting everyone know there are other ways than what we have done forever. There are new ways, there are different ways, and it's really down to us to implement them and to be brave as well, be courageous, And with the responsibility, I learned that, there's this Hawaiian healing prayer called Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And the story behind is that there was Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono. Okay. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. I hope I get that right. But the story behind is that there was a mental health asylum for convicts in Hawaii. And it was a place where nobody ever got released from, high staff turnover, nobody wanted to work there. And they changed the psychiatrist, I think it was, or psychologist, not sure. And he was there for 1 year. And all he did with the files, he was doing the prayer. He never saw any of the patients. He just sat with the files. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Because the whole idea behind this is they are kind of the symptom carriers, the people there. But there is a sickness in society. And we are aware of this. So we are all kind of responsible for this. We have all created these energies. So he sat with the files. And after 1 year, 70% of the patients were released. The staff loved working there. It totally changed into a place of love and growth and healing. So this is why I learned to include that in my prayer. I take responsibility for everything that is in my field. That doesn't mean it's my fault, but I'm part of this humanity. I'm part of this experience, and it is showing itself in my reality. So there's also part of the responsibility on me, So that explains it a bit more.
Yeah, it does explain that more. And that also resonates when I think about, like, say, for example, the work of Joe Dispenza that talks about the quantum field and quantum physics, and it talks about we are the perceivers of, I guess, the reality. And almost in a way, what we can see with our eyes is an illusion at times as well. So there's a lot of correlations that I can make with what you say with other great works. I mean, you mentioned that, there's people in the podcast that be like, oh, who's this crazy lady? But, and they might just, but it's undeniable that all of the things you talk to, you can find correlations out there in other great works from other great teachers that work in the field of trying to expand humanity's consciousness in some way, like Joe Dispenza does, like Masaru Emoto does, trying to help us understand this planet and our role in it more. And I'll talk to something that you said just before as well. You talked about the authenticity piece, right? And I find it really interesting. And I think part of my responsibility in this conversation is to find some very common world examples from people in my world that they might be able to relate to, and while reflecting on some of the things that they're listening to you say. And about 18 months ago, I joined a new company, and there was this person there who he's a consultant in the whole personal branding space, and he does public relations and things. And, his brand is really all about authenticity. And, he challenged us because there's this social networking platform for professionals that some of my listeners might know very well, called LinkedIn. And generally, it makes people shudder. And the reason it makes people, even just mentioning that platform makes some people shudder, is because if I boil it down, a lot of people feel like that platform is synonymous with a real lack of authenticity. But this person came to me one day and said, you should really try and expand your network through using this platform. And I was like, shuddering myself at the time, just thinking about the idea of being more present on there. Feeling like it was a fake place to be potentially and to transact. And he said, just trust me. Like, be yourself, be authentic, and you'll see what happens. And I often tell this story about eventually 4 months later, I decided, hey, listen, I need to try something different, a different approach. What I've been doing hasn't been much and it hasn't been working. So I'm going to take his advice. I started going on there and posting videos of myself, saying the services that I offer, but also being really authentic. This is me as a person too. I've been taking cold showers lately. I'm on a streak at the moment. What else? Oh, I just had a best coffee in town. And being authentic, and it translated into a business connection that ended up being a really fruitful connection that I made with a company in New South Wales. And it was amazing. That was amazing. So you talk to how the world and the paradigm of business is shifting, and authenticity is starting to seep through in business. And I can personally say that I've experienced that. That was advice that I was given by someone in the business world to be more authentic. I took the advice, I applied it, and it worked. And we're seeing it more and more. And you're seeing it with social media as well, like with platforms like TikTok, for example, where the video and the footage is less polished these days. People are tired of all of the polish that, exists out there. We still love glamour and polish, of course. We love to experience polished things, but not all the time, because it's too much pressure on the soul to have to constantly strive for this perfectness. And more and more we're starting to see voices, and the platform of podcasting is really taking off. And what is podcasting? It's just people having conversations, which is wild. It doesn't have to be like lights, camera, action. It can be just two people sitting around, it's Friday night here. It's your Friday. And just having a chat, and so I moved away from my microphone just then. But, I think, a lot of what you say constantly resonates with me. This entire conversation, you can talk about the most woohoo stuff, and I'll find some way of linking it to something else that I've heard from someone else I respect.
That's good.
And hopefully... hopefully my audience is having the same experience, and hopefully your audience is having the same experience too. Like they can hear things that they're like, oh, this isn't the first time I've heard this. I heard this other way from this other person. But yeah, it's
And as you said, it's a transmission as well in a way. So I hope that it will be received as that. So the wording is not necessarily the most important, if you can just receive the energy of what I'm saying, that hopefully will help a lot as well to just arrive a little bit more here on Earth, to feel a little bit more at home, because I know that many of us don't feel at home. And I had this myself for many decades. I'm only now slowly arriving here because I never quite felt home here. And I feel that loneliness is in many of us a big story of our lives. And it's probably with us from when we were born, right? So, and I've been on a big journey with that loneliness. And I'm only now arriving and appreciating, and once again being grateful for being here on this magnificent planet, So, just really being open to also hear different perspectives, and to you mentioned the word trigger at the start. Just let yourself be triggered to I don't know about this, and this is totally turning everything upside down of what I'm believing. But let yourself be triggered, because through the triggers you start to think, and you start to maybe consider there are other ways of doing things. And this is what it's important, like little nudges, does it have to be like that? In the new earth that we are already in, I believe we still learn what we learned through joy, whereas in the past we have learned through deep suffering. Like many of us have very strong stories of suffering, and we did our learning through that. And it's also very valuable, but I feel now we can do our learning through joy. And this is gives me so much hope to also put that out there. And you create your own reality. So if you say, I can learn through joy and through connection and through following my passion, rather than I have to have this hard lessons how we used to do it. That's how we used to do it. And also another little nudge for people, the spiritual path can be a long, difficult path. Yes, but it can also now quantum healing, quantum leaping, all of that. It can also, your healing can go like this. But you need to fully believe in it. that you can shift a big pattern, a big story or ancestral trauma, whatever it is, you can shift it like that. And this is what it's exciting. And it's not about spiritual bypassing, but it's also opening yourself to it can really transform very fast. It doesn't need 20 years of, I don't know, doing the hardest yoga and longest meditation ever. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. But the consciousness has to be there, and the openness and the trust, and really being open that things are always different to what we think they are. Things are different than they seem.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to just bring everybody to open their heart to maybe a new way of doing things. And if it's all a little bit too much, then starting with little changes. Yeah. Like little new things, little new ways, and then see what's the result. Oh, actually worked out fine. So, and then we can do the bigger things, right? So that would be a nice way of trying things out.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the baby steps, little things, not going head first into things, because sometimes the water is where you might want to be, but going head first into it isn't the best way of getting there. Like, hello, it might hurt.
Yes.
And you might recoil, and, it might take you a while to come back again. So, it's really great. And you said there, like, open heart, open your heart. Like, it's something I really believe in, like I sit here and this conversation is actually, it's not that different to some of the things that I often talk about, but you do sort of bring up some things that, maybe I wasn't, it's a bit foreign to me to hear on a daily basis, I can be forgiven for that, I'm sure. But, like I sit here with an open heart, and that's why I allow it to sort of come in and sit and simmer. I don't go off and buy the next book and book the next retreat. That's not how I operate. Some people do that. What I do is I just let it stir around in my heart, and think about it some more and ask the sort of antagonizing questions. What proof do I have that it's not true? We are spinning around a giant ball of fire in space, like, is what Hamaima's saying really that far out? Or have we just been so conditioned, especially, through this very quick evolution that we've gone through, this industrial into technological into now, like this crazy AI age and quantum computing. It's a very steep linear like curve, I suppose, that we've gone through our growth. So, and you talk to that, like you talk to it yourself. You talk to things are shifting quickly. Well, yeah. Duh, like, hello, you don't have to be a spiritual person to see that. Like, one of the things that I experience daily is looking at the time going, whoa, how did it get to 11? Whoa, how did it get to 3? And without wanting to ever come across as too woohoo to anyone, I question people. I'm like, hey, is it just me, or is time going faster lately? And then again, like, I antagonize. I'm like, no, like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's going as fast as it always has, but because we've got these screens and things now, and we can be extremely productive because of these things. I can, I used to have to write a letter, and I used to have to, lick a stamp and put it in a letterbox, to go and communicate with a loved one somewhere, even like suburbs away. But now I can send 6 emails in 5 minutes, and we have marketing tools that can automate all that for us, and we can communicate on such a grander scale. So is it that time's going faster, or is it that we're more productive, or can both be true at the same time? Ooh, the audience is getting to know a real side of me now, aren't they? Hello. No.
Yeah, I wanted to say something to you. And first of all, it's good to read all the things and go everywhere and, just information. But you said it so beautifully. We need to feel it. So, theoretically, many people know a lot of things, but it hasn't quite reached the heart. That's why opening the heart is so important. So all that input, all that you are looking for and seeking and searching is all good, but are you really feeling it, and is it really integrated? So that is what I would watch out for. So because some of these things, we can all talk about it, you can read about it, but if you haven't really experienced and felt it, it doesn't mean anything. So it's good to take time to really feel into it, or also go, sorry, I said don't go everywhere, but go to places where you can feel it, where you can have an experience of this, for this connection, an experience of this is how we would live together in the new earth. This is a new earth community. This is how we would live our daily lives together, to just really experience and feel it. How would it feel to experience it? And then it's like, oh God, now I get it, So it's like, it's good to have all this theoretical knowledge, but it has to be experienced and felt. And that can only be felt when you open your heart. And just over and over again. And you doing the beautiful thing with your podcast, because you have all these inspiring life stories where people are breaking out of the matrix and they're pushing themselves, and they have these amazing experiences, they're changing their lives. So you are contributing in your own way, because that is how you are helping people to remember. This is how you are supporting the awakening process, because you're showing, look what all these people are doing. There are other ways. I show you, and it's maybe not always easy, but the end result is them being here on my podcast, talking about it like it was the best thing ever. And that thank you for your contribution, my love, to this process of remembering, because it's a big contribution, and maybe you don't see that in yourself, and maybe you underestimate yourself a little bit, but I want to just honor you for that and thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service. So thank you.
No, I appreciate that. And yeah, I think that there's a couple of things that you touched on there. And the first one is that, I did mention that I like to get bits from everywhere and have lots of conversations, but I think it's for a different purpose now. I'm not on that journey of still needing to be convinced or needing to grasp onto, to be convinced of something. I think it's what you said, like I've now opened my heart to certain things. So now I feel like I go far and wide with the conversations in this podcast now, especially after the last few episodes. I've introduced some interesting characters to the podcast, Hamaima, some very interesting characters. But I think what I'll talk to is something I mentioned before, is that I want to be able to make the correlation between something that a kid from Brighton, which is, a fancy suburb here in Melbourne, says when he goes fishing and he talks about how beautiful it is to be sitting at the end of the pier and watching the sunset. I want to be able to make correlations between something that they say and something that you say, or something that one of my other guests, potentially like Sean, or Yamini Kaluri, or Hector Marcel. These people, they all say these things. And what I have the ability to do now, and that I'm very grateful for, is to connect the dots and go, we're not so different. We aren't so different. We can find these correlations. And the further and more far-reaching I go in all directions with the conversations that I have, the more that it proves to me how similar we all are. And that's why I go far and wide. But, also I'll talk to, and you thanking me for being part of the mission and the purpose as well. I have to admit, I have to come clean, and, maybe a bunch of close people in my life may have heard these stories, but not everyone, and certainly not a lot of my audience. And that I actually saw a clairvoyant when I was 24 years old. And that clairvoyant closed her eyes, held my hands, like this, and was like, "Oh, you're a writer." So I went and wrote a children's book, and I spent 5 years illustrating it. And in the end, I only wrote 240 words, so I didn't really write much. And I worked on the book, and, I sort of grinded with it and side hustled with it a little bit. And then about 12 years later, an ex-girlfriend of mine bought me a session with a Vedic astrologer. And this Vedic astrologer was like downloading things from the universe, obviously, or wherever they get their information from. And he goes, "You're a writer. Like, what are you doing? Like, have you written anything yet?" And then he said, "Well, the scriptures or whatever it is that I'm reading, they're very traditional, or the download that I'm getting is said in a traditional way. But in the reality of today, you don't necessarily have to be a writer, but more a publisher of some sort. So you can do a YouTube or a podcast or something like that, or, just to make it clear that you don't have to physically be a writer. Like, what I'm getting is more of someone that puts out content, And by then I had done 6 episodes of the podcast, and it had just, the 5 had been released. 1 had been sitting there unedited for over a year, and you were the 7th. You were the first one back after I brought those messages in, and I made the correlations between what the Vedic astrologer said and what the clairvoyant said 12 years earlier. And I was like, all right, I better get off my backside and, actually start putting this into practice, seeing what happens, because I'm not doing it, and it's not a coincidence. It can't be a coincidence that these 2 people with these esoteric gifts have said the exact same thing 12 years apart in 2 totally different phases of my life. One where I was just a new dad and I was feeling very lost, and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And I had this dependent baby who loved me. And the second time where, she's now like a young teenager, and I have this other relationship and this dog, 2 very different phases of my life. How could this be that I get the same message? It has to be true. I have to open my heart to it. And so, hopefully that helps explain to you like why I'm doing this, and
I'm very glad to hear that and that you're following that. And it really comes through, it's really beautiful to connect with you. And I feel you are also a bridge and bringing more, like you said, interesting characters into the podcast, because you feel like your listeners are trusting you, and you might be able to also bring some new concepts and so on. So Thank you. Yeah, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the responsibility is on my listeners as well. Like, you're going to hear some conversations that at the very beginning, it's going to feel like, whoa, what am I listening to? Like, Louis talking to a comedian, and there's a lot of cursing and a lot of laughing and a lot of them being boys. But, if you listen to, you don't even have to listen to half an hour. These people give gold nuggets from their soul. At some point, they'll say something that's really deep and meaningful inside of them, part of their values. And the rest of what they say, it might be, a little bit debaucherous at times and risky and, like loud and, maybe even offensive to people that are prone to being offended. But, like, look past the surface layer and look through into what the person's actually saying, that they actually just loved watching the sunset. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And thank you. Thank you for putting that back on me and giving me the opportunity to tell that story as well, because it's not, it's not something that I talk about much. And I'm blushing now.
I'm glad you did.
I appreciate it. Well, as always, this has been a really great chat. And, what I like to do is give my guest the opportunity to share with us something before we leave. And you've shared a lot with us today, but maybe even if it's the website again and, how people can find you, which platforms they can find you on and all of that. And maybe we can...
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll leave it to you.
What just came to me when you asked me, it's just know that you are more than welcome here. You're more than welcome on this planet. You're more than welcome on this planet. And we are all very grateful that everyone who is here at the times of prophecies is starting to remember. Even if it's a difficult time now, there's always help. So just know that you're not alone. That is what I would like to say. And if you're interested in the project, the website is missiononearth.org. And on Instagram, we are mission.on.earth. And everyone is welcome to join us as somebody seeking support, but also just to be part of the network and to hear what's going on for us. So as I said, we will create a Telegram channel as well to bring everyone together. And so I have an EP out on Spotify. I think last time I didn't have it. If I did the last one, So it's called Into My Heart. Beautiful EP with 5 songs. And then there's a beautiful rave tune as well, which is called The Witches. Okay. So if you want a bit of a giggle, then have a listen. And I'm very happy always to be invited here. Thank you so much, Louis. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for our friendship, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, totally. So missiononearth.org, and you heard it from Hamaima, everyone. So go and check it out. And yeah, the EP, that's new. I'll have to jump on my Spotify and give that a listen.
Listen to
I'm
on the
excited.
cycle to work. You can listen to me singing.
Yeah, I need to. It's always very dense with audiobooks and really heavy learning sometimes. And sometimes I'm just like, I need some tunes for this ride. So yeah, no doubt next week you'll be in my ears as I'm cycling through the northern
looking
suburbs
forward
of
to
Melbourne.
hearing your feedback.
I'll give it to you, of course.
Wonderful.
But yeah, thanks a lot for joining us again, Hamaima, and thanks until next time, I suppose. I have a feeling this isn't going to be the last time we talk.
See you next time.
Bye. Bye. We'd love to know what you thought of that episode of the Lui Diaz Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and even TikTok to let us know. And be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave us a review on Spotify, where you can catch some of our other really great episodes. Thanks for listening, and catch you next time.